Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim McCafferty. I'm one of the executive board members for CrimCon. I'm associate professor at Kennesaw State University. Welcome to CrimCon 2020. This is the 11 a.m. panel on Stream 1. This is Participatory Methods in Prison Research, Lessons Learned from the Prison Research and Innovation Initiative. We have a nice group of experts with us today, and I'm going to turn the floor over to them.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Cassandra, and I am a senior researcher at the Urban Institute, and I am also the project director for the Prison Research and Innovation Initiative. I'm just going to give a very brief background of the initiative because we want to spend most of our time with our presenters and hearing from them on what we've been learning in this work so far. But basically, the Prison Research and Innovation Initiative is a 5-year project that the Urban Institute has embarked on, and it's with the support of Arnold Ventures. We are looking at prison reform, and we're aiming to leverage research and evidence to shine a light on prison conditions and pilot innovative, transformative strategies that can promote the well-being of people who are confined in facilities and who are also working there. And so we are aiming to establish a model of transparency, accountability, and innovation, and to just generally advance the national discourse around both defining the corrections field and profession and supporting the ongoing correction reform efforts that are already underway. So a key component of this initiative is the Prison Research and Innovation Network. So we call it the PRIN. And the PRIN involves a consortium of 5 states that were selected through a competitive application process earlier this year. And the sites include Colorado, Delaware, Iowa, Missouri, and Vermont. And within each of these states, there's a local research partner and a pilot prison. And together, they are using research and data to spur innovative reforms in the pilot prison that can then later inspire additional prison reform policies statewide. So as part of our research activities, which you'll hear more about today, sites are developing a climate survey to better understand the conditions in the pilot prison. And with this survey, we intend to use the baseline data to inform or to look for where are there opportunities to implement innovative strategies that can push for reforms. And this survey will be repeated annually so that we can look for measure change, see where there might be need to modify some of the reforms. And we'll also be using the survey data to do some cross-site comparison and really understand what lessons can we lift up across the network and across the states and the pilot prisons to get a bigger picture of what we're learning. So one of the most unique aspects of the PRIN is that it adopts a participatory action research approach. And what that means is the sites are engaging the individuals who are confined in the prison and who are working there to really be involved in the various aspects of the research. So that includes the survey development, the data analysis and interpretation, and identifying innovations that we want that are going to be put out in the prison, and really tapping into the idea that the people who are confined there and working there are experts in what is going on, and they really bring value to this work, and it's important for us to tap into them and all of the knowledge that they can bring to the work. So we're currently approaching the end of phase 1 of the project, which was a planning stage, developing the climate survey, and phase 2 we are about to embark on early next year, which is identifying the innovations that are going to be implemented and then measuring for impact over the next four years of the project. So today we want to hear from our sites about the remarkable strides that they've been making amidst the COVID-19 pandemic challenges that have been presented to them, but they are still moving forward with this work. And so we're very, very excited to be hearing from 3 of our sites today. We're going to hear from Delaware, Vermont, and Colorado. So Delaware, you're up first. So I'm going to pass it over to Megan to kick us off.
Okay.
Megan, can I just say something before you get started? I'm sorry to interrupt. For any of the attendees, I forgot to mention, there is a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Please type any questions that you have into that Q&A box, and we hope to have some time at the very end. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So good morning. Thank you all for being here. The University of Delaware research team is very excited to be a part of this panel to share some of the research we are doing as part of the Prison Research and Innovation Network project. This presentation will really focus on how we are using innovative methods, ideas, and solutions to better understand and interpret prison experiences in an effort to improve prison conditions for both those who work within the institution as well as those who are housed within the institution. So first and foremost, I want to highlight how the incorporation of diverse perspectives and experiences have been instrumental in our work thus far. I work with a team of esteemed and diverse scholars whose expertise and knowledge has provided the foundation and guidance for our research. Members of the team have an inside knowledge of the prison institution, both working and living within the institution. For example, members of our team know what it's like to serve chow, to have to eat during shift because there are no times for breaks, to file a grievance within the prison facility, and to experience prison programming firsthand. It is experiences like these that has been vital in our efforts to build trust and rapport with those working and living within the pilot prison. In addition, the implementation of diverse research methods and strategies has been essential to this process. Members of our research team possess extensive experience researching topics including race, reentry, and prison programming. Also, members of our research team have conducted participatory action research methods within communities prior to this project. For example, my colleague Darryl Chambers has led various street park projects within the city of Wilmington. As a result, this expertise has helped to implement these methods into our own research design, while also demonstrating the power of participatory research methods. Furthermore, these methods have enabled us to include representatives from DOC staff and incarcerated persons as full team members on the research committees. This not only has enriched our understanding of prison experiences, but has also allowed us to collaboratively brainstorm innovative solutions to address concerns within the prison facility, which I will discuss later on within this presentation. So the power of PAR should not be understated. It has become so common within traditional research to rely on outside experts for understanding the prison environment, but in reality, the true experts are those who are living the experience. Participatory action research methodologies allows the people living the experience to be the experts. This innovative methodology prioritizes a social action-based approach to conducting research and promoting change. In adopting this methodology within the PRIN project, the creation of 2 research committees, one comprised of staff members and one comprised of those housed within the prison, has been crucial to understanding and interpreting prison experiences. Importantly, these methods are unique in that they involve those most affected within the prison environment and provide them with opportunities to be involved at every stage of the research process, including survey design, analysis, reporting results, presentations, publications, and much more. So for example, just recently, we had our colleague, Dr. Ronette Bachman come in and provide an overview of some key skills and developmental skills in survey design research. So it's through the implementation of this innovative method that powerful ideas and collaborations have been able to grow. This process has uncovered important insights into the prison experience so far. However, we have had to navigate challenges along the way. First, the current pandemic has slowed the research process and required several adjustments and accommodations to ensure the safety of those within the facility, as well as those from the University of Delaware research team. For example, while we had planned to do in-person recruitment and interviewing earlier this year, our recruitment strategies needed to be altered due to prison visitation restrictions. Similarly, while we had intended to begin meeting with the research committees earlier this year, we had to shift our meeting dates to the beginning of October. Technological barriers have also been encountered. The process of setting up Zoom, securing a camera within the facility, among other logistics, have needed to be addressed throughout this entire process. Another important ongoing challenge has been the recruitment and retention of staff for the Staff Research Committee. Due to various concerns that we can talk about later on in the question and answer period, including job security, apprehension and trust, and administrative oversight, has caused members of the team to have to brainstorm strategies to continue to build trust with the Staff Research Committee, to encourage attendance, and to recruit staff members that are not tenure to increase the diversity of perspectives on the committee. Lastly, another challenge that has been recognized is the tall task of narrowing down topics of concern to include on the climate survey. While areas of concern are abundant, it has been critical to the research process to pinpoint areas within the prison facility that can be addressed and prioritized within the climate survey. In the question and answer period, once again, we can delve into a deeper discussion of some of the innovative strategies used to address and overcome many of the challenges that we've encountered thus far. What makes this project and our approach different is that innovation is being built into every step of this process. Not only are we using unique methods and incorporating diverse perspectives from those most affected by the prison conditions, but we are also building in potential solutions into the climate survey. While standard climate surveys typically just point out all the problems and issues, we are moving beyond this by incorporating possible innovation options into the design. So the incorporation of these potential solutions are really important because the survey outcomes can point to possible interventions that can be implemented within the pilot facility. So, for example, the lack of job training has been identified as a key concern by the committee comprised of those living within the prison. Rather than just acknowledging this problem, the committee has constructed a question to ask about the potential solutions that could address this. So as you can see pictured here, the committee created a question about job training opportunities in order to determine what would be a desired solution to address this concern. Similarly, the Staff Research Committee has started to build innovative solutions into the climate survey as well. For example, job performance evaluations have been a topic of considerable discussion. In turn, they have built in a question about whether staff would support the implementation of a 360 evaluation plan. Another area that has come up is that there isn't enough dialogue between supervisors and staff members. So as a result, the staff committee wants to know whether the population would prefer having more regular check-ins with supervisors in order to discuss things like job performance and different trainings. Another area that has come up within the staff committee is stress on the job. But rather than just identifying that individuals that are working within the facility are stressed, the committee has decided to build in a question regarding potential ways to cope with stress. So what are some of the effective ways that individuals can cope with stress within the facility? So as you can see, innovation at every stage of this process has been really key to our efforts and crucial to a deeper understanding of prison experiences and the implementation of changes within the prison facility. So as we continue to proceed with this project, we plan to continue building innovation in at every stage of this process because it really will help us to target change and really make a difference within the prison environment. So thank you so much for listening in on some of the research activities that we've been doing thus far as part of this project, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have during the question and answer period.
Thank you, Megan. That was fantastic. So our next presenter is going to be from our site in Vermont.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jess King-Moore, and I'm the lead research analyst from the Vermont Department of Corrections. With me here today, I have Abby Crocker, who's a research assistant professor at the Department of Mathematics and Statistics, specializing in quantitative research methods and translational research with a focus on the intersection of justice and health issues, as well as Kathy Fox, professor in the Department of Sociology, specializing in qualitative research methods and criminology with a focus on corrections and community reentry. These are both of our research partners at the University of Vermont. Today, I'll be talking about the role of university-state partnerships to support research in correctional facilities for systems change. So as an overview of what I'll talk about today, I'm going to talk about the benefits and opportunities of these partnerships, key elements and factors that support successful partnerships, the Vermont PRIN, the Prison Research and Innovation Network project that's been discussed, and how this was a spearhead to our partnership, as well as a year one reflection. So university-state partnerships involve collaborating with a shared research agenda to produce informative and actionable findings. The Vermont DOC aims for data to inform policies and practices. So for instance, our risk assessments, supervision practices, and program options are all informed by research conducted by universities. Additionally, many policies are informed by research and best practices from the National Institute of Corrections. This partnership allows for an increased capacity for research and data-driven policies and practices at the DOC. Having partners outside the DOC conduct independent research that falls in line with our shared vision helps engage policymakers and key stakeholders in the community to assist with widespread change that is likely necessary from involved culture-based research. A benefit for research partners in this partnership is to conduct applied research in a real-world setting, which is not always possible in academic research. For the Vermont DOC, our research unit is quite small in that I'm the only research analyst currently for the department. So this partnership allows for the skilled, driven experts like Abby and Kathy at UVM to expand the capacity of the Vermont DOC and implement involved quantitative and qualitative research and assist in data analytic capacity within the department. I would argue though, no matter what the size of the DOC or data research group that you have in-house, having this ability for expansion is very valuable. Having an outside independent research partner collect sensitive data in our correctional facilities allows for an objective, more trusted source to collect this information and disseminate aggregate findings for those in our facilities and to DOC leadership. Although the Vermont DOC is actively working to shift the transparency and culture in our department, this work would not be possible without an outside partner skilled in conducting interviews and focus groups, discovering the issues that are paramount to those who live and work in our facilities. Additionally, having partnerships allows for shared efforts where we can utilize each other's resources and collaborate on our shared agendas and goals. So some key elements to a partnership. So most of the infrastructure points are self-explanatory and have been discussed throughout this presentation, such as, a shared research agenda and of course, having facility access and security for our partners. But I'm going to touch on some less tangible key elements that I will highlight for the trust and shared vision columns. So number one, appreciating risks. For the Department of Corrections, it's typically difficult for us to open up our doors to outside research partners. For the University of Vermont and all researchers really, for research projects, especially those involving incarcerated individuals, takes a great amount of time and effort, and it takes trust by both partners that we have a shared vision and will work toward that vision in these research projects to surge past these risks and work on something truly valuable. Highlighting champions. So while leadership support is essential in a project, it's not enough on its own. The individuals in both organizations who are on the ground moving the work forward and persisting through red tape and bureaucracy are key. These individuals are invested in the success of the collaboration and are key for building trust. And it's important that they're not just following directives from leadership, but have true buy-in. And then finally, shared vision. I'm just going to highlight that point in general. So the potential benefits of a university-state partnership are broad and of interest to not only state and university leaders, but also the individuals who are living and working in correctional facilities, as well as state legislators, community members, students, and even more. As we look to collaborations and opportunities beyond the scope of individual efforts, it's important that all stakeholders support a shared vision and shared vision and identify opportunities along the way to realize that vision. Cassandra already touched on the Vermont Prison Research and Innovation Initiative, or Prison Research and Innovation Network, but I'll touch on it a little bit as well. So it's a 5-year study implemented across 5 states with the goal to improve the health and well-being of individuals who live and work in prisons. Through Arnold Ventures, this project is funded by the Urban Institute, and they're an active third partner in this research. The project is grounded in one correctional pilot facility with the goal to expand what is learned to all facilities statewide gradually when possible and appropriate. What is unique about this project and could spur the culture change that we desire is that it includes an iterative process of data collection and analyses using participatory research methods, which we've discussed today. This means that those who live and work in the pilot correctional facility not only have the opportunity to participate in surveys, but that they also have a voice in the information included in these surveys via research councils. Additionally, this project is grounded in mixed methods and longitudinal data analyses, which includes regular interviews and focus groups for qualitative data collection, annual surveys for both staff and incarcerated individuals, as well as quantitative analyses with administrative and operational data. Another important aspect of this research is the engagement of the executive committee. This is a diverse, knowledgeable advisory panel made up of various stakeholders, such as elected officials, union members, community advocates, who can leverage what is learned by the regular data walks throughout the study to make change actionable. The PRIN project was the spearhead to establishing the partnership between UVM and the Vermont DOC, but the history of collaboration between our organizations and plans for this partnership precede this project. I will say though, this project gave this partnership focus, accountability, technical assistance, and funding, which were necessary to get this partnership going. The expansive nature of PRIN means that our research will be broad, with numerous opportunities to connect this work to other efforts. So some year 1 reflections. Great progress so far. We've had a great start. We've seen amazing engagement and buy-in from Vermont DOC leadership, staff within our facilities, incarcerated individuals, and external stakeholders in the media and press. In this partnership, UVM has also started a complementary grant-funded project in our women's prison. This project will parallel some of what is being done for the PRIN, but of course will differ as female incarcerated individuals have different needs and concerns than male incarcerated individuals. Through this partnership, we've established a collaboration between our institutional review boards with a deferment process that should expedite future reviews. We can also use this partnership to synergize efforts and create awareness when engaging stakeholders. But we have had some speed bumps and challenges along the way. First, we had some leadership change in the Vermont DOC right before the pandemic. Additionally, the COVID pandemic has created its own challenges through mitigation efforts. Following our stringent protocols and ever-changing procedures is difficult. Additionally, the culture in our facilities has shifted drastically due to COVID. So for instance, staff having a lot of overtime hours, COVID stress, and no visitation for incarcerated individuals. Creating these partnerships through the bureaucratic systems for both organizations require extensive paperwork and approvals, which can delay partnerships and projects. To help some bureaucratic related stalls on changes to current projects and implementing future projects in this partnership, we've created an umbrella no-cost contract between our organizations, which allows for quicker modifications to the contract for addressing changes to current projects and allows for easy addition of new projects that fall within our shared research agenda. It is important to note that a contract in general was necessary to develop between our organizations to adhere to the data sharing requirements set by the state. It can be a real challenge to build a lasting partnership between two organizations with different cultures and with their own bureaucracies. This takes patience, commitment, and celebrating the goals, no matter how small, met along the journey. So thank you. I will say this partnership has been built through collaboration with many within the Vermont DOC and UVM organizations. I pictured some of the individuals here, including myself and Kathy and Abby, but we've had so much help by so many more people to get this partnership underway. I've also included emails for myself, Abby, and Kathy, as well as some research links to our Vermont DOC website, UVM's Justice Research Initiative website, as well as the Urban Prison Research and Innovation Initiative website. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jessica. And last up on our list of panelists is Colorado. So we'll be hearing from Jeff now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Lynn. I'm a criminology professor at the University of Denver. I'm presenting on behalf of my co-researchers, Shannon, Sliva, and Ashley Hamilton, also at DU. Just want to quickly acknowledge the leadership team at our facility, Sterling Correctional, as well as our staff and inmate councils, the Colorado Department of Corrections, and of course, the Urban Institute and Arnold Foundation for supporting our work. So I'm just going to tell the story today a little bit of our engagement with correctional staff in this facility. Obviously, we are, like all sites, we are engaging both the staff and the inmates, but with COVID, there have been some logistical issues on the inmate side that I don't have to get into the details of, but so this is really the story of our engagement with staff. So as other groups have been describing, and as Cassandra told you about, we are engaged in a community-based participatory research, participatory research process here, where we bring all stakeholders to the table. We're sharing decision-making and ownership over the work and all the proposals that really emerge from it. So this photo is our kickoff meeting with Urban and Arnold, DOC senior staff, and the Sterling senior staff as well. So Shannon and I really started developing relationships in the prison through the DU Prison Arts Initiative, which is run by Ashley Hamilton, who's on the call. And they've been working in state facilities on art and performance projects since 2017. So we started coming in as part of the PAI research team and working with Ashley. But we quickly started forming relationships with leadership and having conversations about broader changes in the facility. And I'll just say the warden, the associate warden, and other key senior staff have been incredibly open about these conversations and the potential to change things in the facility in a way I've never really seen before in 20 years of correctional research. Let me just quickly describe the state political environment. There's a lot of top-down pressure for correctional change in Colorado. We elected a very progressive governor, Jared Polis, in 2018. He has put forth a number of wildly important policy priorities, one of which is, quote, reduce prison populations by reducing recidivism, right? Which is an immediate call for correctional change in the state. He's appointed Dean Williams as the head of as the executive director of our Department of Corrections. He's very reform-minded ED and has taken quite a number of actions to pursue that wildly important policy priority. So in my career, I often think about policy windows in which opportunities open up in a particular place at a particular time for reform. And most of the time I've just seen those windows being shut in my face. But in Colorado right now, it's happening. That window is wide open. We have state and institutional leadership who are committed to reform. We have incredible support within the facility, certainly among senior staff. And what I'm telling you about today is the story of our attempt to engage staff at all levels and all positions. So what we find is that, sorry, I'm having slide issues here. What we find is that the challenges to really engaging the work are not really coming from the broad landscape of state politics. They're coming from, the challenges are on the ground, they're localized. So, what we kind of knew before and what is underscored for us through this research project is that a lot like police on the street, line staff in a prison serve as street level bureaucrats in this system. They utilize judgment and discretion to manage all kinds of tensions between institutional safety, inmate needs, staff workload, and the potential effects of sanctions and discipline. And all that discretion gets filtered through the diversity of both staff and inmate populations. So I actually changed the title of this presentation. It was originally Engaging Correctional Officers, and now it's Engaging Correctional Staff Members, because one of the things we realized and has been highlighted to us is that the staff ecology of the prison is much larger than the security staff. And so Sterling Correctional Facility right now has about 1,900 all male inmates at all security levels and 700 to 800 staff at any given time. The inmates have different sentence lengths, social and demographic differences, all the ways that inmates differ, lengths of stay. And in a way, the ecology of the institution is so complicated that there are really kind of two ecologies that interact, that of the inmates and that of the staff. And even within each of those frameworks, we find differences. So, for each of those ecologies, inmate and staff, they are distinct on two sides of the prison. This prison is really two prisons in a way. kind of what we call a high side and a low side, high security side, low security side. And they're very different. And the way that inmates and staff interact and behave on each side of that prison are distinct. And then, we've identified any number of other differences or sources of diversity among staff members, for example, across rank. We see quite a significant division between management and line staff in terms of what they see every day and how they perceive the purpose of the prison. We see a lot of diversity across jobs. So obviously security staff are the ones we pay attention to the most, but we have case managers, teachers, facility staff, other staff in this facility, and they all interact in complicated ways. We found a lot of diversity across shifts. There are 3 work shifts in this prison. So we've got the day shift, when inmates are mostly at work or in programs. We have the graveyard shift, the overnight shift, where everyone's asleep and nothing really happens. And then we have the swing shift, that middle shift, that sees the most activity, because that's when inmates are not working, they're not in class, they're hanging around, they're socializing, they're just kind of doing the things normal we do out here when we're socializing with each other. And there's just a lot more potential for interpersonal dynamics that need or demand management from security staff. And so those shifts differ significantly from one another as well. We see a lot of tenure differences, the newer COs or the newer staff versus the older staff. The older staff who've been there longer have witnessed a lot more institutional change, and specifically the stop and start of institutional change. So they've seen this before where, nerds come in or well-meaning folks come in and say, okay, here are some changes that are going to happen. And, they've seen those go nowhere. And so they're a little jaded. They're skeptical about us, and we have to recognize that. New staff, haven't had those jading experiences. We see a lot of ideological differences as well. There's kind of an old school tough on crime approach that is very powerful, a very powerful culture in this prison. And there are elements of a more modern kind of humanistic approach, and everything in between, right? This isn't something you want to divide into either or, it's a spectrum, okay? From our initial focus groups of staff to develop the survey, what we found, one really key thing we found is that staff really feel that the department treats them as objects and not subjects. That staff, in other words, are used to being acted upon and not really actors themselves who have autonomy and choice. We've heard, over the months that CDOC kind of treats staff and inmates the same way, with kind of punishment as a routine response, right, as part of their organizational culture. And there are very few incentives for good performance or helping others, right? A really telling quote we got in one of our focus groups was, blue and green are both victims of this institution, right? Blue meaning the staff, who tend to wear blue, and the inmates wear green. Okay, another factor that matters is the surrounding community, which tends to be conservative, has very black and white views, very tough on crime views. Of course, the employee pool of this prison is drawn from the surrounding community, as employee pools are. The facility experiences perennial, persistent staff shortages. And we've heard a lot about how the dominant culture in the surrounding community informs the dominant culture inside the facility. So the facility does not exist on its own, it exists in dialogue with the community that surrounds it as well. And one of the ways that manifests is kind of an us versus them mentality, right? That kind of staff on one side, inmates on the other. And so our team is seeking ways to bridge that. One way we have found that we can bridge that, or one way we found that can be bridged, is a little tragic, but we found that convulsive events are actually can bring staff and inmates closer together, like COVID, for example. This is a great tragedy on a global scale, but we have heard that staff and inmates are coming closer together and have more empathy with one another because they're going through the same thing. Other examples would be a flood that happened in the prison, I believe it was 2002, and 9/11 were other examples that were cited to us as sort of these like convulsive national or international events that bring people closer together. And they cause a lot of organizational issues, but again, staff and inmates often can find common purpose through those convulsive events. And so our thinking here is, common purpose doesn't necessarily have to be a response to crisis. So can we devise sources of common purpose that are positive, that can close the gap between different groups in this prison that don't have to do with global pandemics or terrorist attacks or horrible things that happen. So what are our takeaways so far? We need to really pay attention to the microsocial ways that staff draw lines between themselves and inmates. We need to pay close attention to different groups of staff with different orientations. And we need to find areas of commonality and collective purpose to fade and erase those lines. And finally, we have to show commitment to the work. This is what we hear over and over again. You must show commitment to the work. That involves a few things: earning trust with staff, meaning distinguishing ourselves from CDOC management, being clear about confidentiality and privacy, and setting up separate communication lines with staff, like a separate email account and locked mailboxes in the facility. Literally showing our faces. Staff keep telling us, you just have to show up. You just need to be here. If you show your faces in the facility, that builds the most goodwill and connection. Unfortunately, that's very difficult when the facility is on lockdown because of COVID. And then really just listening and learning about the culture and ideologies of the staff, as I've kind of reported on here. So just want to say thank you to our research partners and funders. Thank you for the opportunity to present our research today. I know I've gone a little bit over.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to all of our panelists. We really appreciate the time that you took to put together some of these early lessons learned, hearing about some of the in the field direct insights about the research activities such as survey development, the importance of the stakeholder relationships, which is really one of the cornerstones of this project. The willingness of corrections to open up their doors to this research is transformative, as well as the openness for stakeholders and state representatives to collaborate and inspire statewide reforms through this project. And so, as we also heard, the importance of, when engaging correctional staff, really embracing the amount of diversity that exists within the facilities, as Jeff pointed out, and recognizing and responding to all the challenges you all are facing, and responding to things like skepticism and recognizing the political landscapes and the different ideologies and cultures that you're doing the research within, and finding ways to come together and find these commonalities. And we really appreciate all the work that you're doing to build trust and engage the researchers, the research partners in the facilities as you go on to do this work. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I wanted to take some time now to open it up to the viewers and see if there are any questions. And I'm not sure from the host, are there any questions in the chat?
I don't see any questions yet in the chat or in the Q&A box. So if any of the attendees, and we have many attendees, if any of the attendees have any questions, please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to ask a question.
I'll just give people a few minutes.
I can ask a question if you'd like, Cassandra. This would be directed at Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I really, having gone through everything we've gone through in the last 8 months, I never really thought about some of that feelings of consensus and, we're all in it together, happening in prisons as well. And, you said at the end of your presentation that, the staff and the inmates, they are kind of coming together, seeing a sense of collective purpose for this. What other, what are the type of positive benefits of having this kind of camaraderie like that between the staff and the inmates? And I don't even know if I could come up with another example where, something happens in our society that would bring that distance between those two groups together even more. But what are some of the positive aspects of that feeling of camaraderie?
That's a great question. I would say we don't fully know what all the outcomes of that really are, because I don't know about you, but this COVID thing is affecting everybody where I live a lot, and we're still going through it. And so, a question I have is, does that empathy fade, right, as COVID goes on and on and on? One thing about 9/11 was it just happened, right, and then it was over, and then we all kind of had to reckon with it. With COVID, I don't need to get into the politics of COVID, but we don't know when this is going to end. And so I think there may be I worry that there will be some fading of that commonality, that empathy. But, I think for a staff in a facility, in a community that very much adheres to a kind of us versus them mentality, anything that can erase or fade that distinction helps. And the one thing I didn't have time to talk about in the presentation, I'll just mention right now, is that us versus them mentality really creates what I call a finite resource view of the facility, where, when something is given to one group, the other group perceives something being taken from them. And so one example, and we thought about this as a title for a paper, but what was it? It was like video games and barbecues, right? Like, so a bunch of the inmates got video game systems, and about the same time, staff barbecues went away. And a lot of the staff link those. They say, well, you gave them Xboxes and we don't have barbecues anymore. So obviously you're taking from us to give to them, right? So I think part of it revolves around that kind of finite resource view. And I will say there's validity to that view. Correctional institutions are not, these are not well-resourced. This is not like the Menlo Park offices of Facebook over here, where you've got a ping pong table and video games in your kitchen, right? I mean, they do have finite resources. So that's real. However, I think it's overblown in the facility because of the way that inmates and staff relate to one another and perceive one another. And I'd love actually right now to maybe have Ashley weigh in a little bit on prison arts, because that's one thing we've seen that that does bring staff and inmates together. That's kind of positive, right? So I don't know, Ashley, you got anything to say about that?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I think that I totally agree with you that there is this feeling of sort of that the resources are finite, and that it is an us versus them, that if incarcerated folks are being given something or receiving something, that then therefore staff are not. And it's like as if the resources will run out. And to be fair, like Jeff said, that is, there aren't endless resources in corrections. We know that. But I also think that I would just add that might have, I think that's linked to a larger philosophical view about corrections in the United States, and about sort of the way that we've built this system over time. And that, folks who are incarcerated are there to be punished and to, do time for the harm that they've caused. And so then this concept of them being given anything is really counter to sort of the underlying foundation of how we've set up corrections in the US. So I think what's interesting about the arts, so I run the Prison Arts Initiative, and Jeff and Shannon also work on that project with me as well. And I think what's fascinating about DU Pi and the arts aspect is that because the arts are so palatable, they tend to kind of blow through some of that that concept of like us versus them, because it's a vehicle by which people can put that aside for a little bit. Not always. There's plenty of folks who we work with in the CDOC who might who have said to me, and who I know maybe think that the programming that I create, incarcerated folks shouldn't have or be allowed to have. But a lot of folks are actually really supportive of it in the CDOC. And I think it's because the arts are palatable, right? We know that across our culture. People love to hear stories in various forms and be moved. It's a less sort of overt way for staff and incarcerated folks to connect. I have some incredible stories of watching CDOC staff and our incarcerated folks inside connect over projects of various kinds, plays, podcasts, newspapers. And because they're so focused on the project and the work, some of that us versus them starts to melt away somehow. It's really interesting, and I think is a really exciting vehicle for what could be possible. But it's one of many things, right?
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for that. I also wanted to pivot to Lisa. I think she wanted to get in, and I always appreciate her insights coming from a practitioner perspective. So I just wanted to hand it over to her for a bit.
Yeah, thanks, Cassandra. So yeah, echoing what Jeffrey and Ashley said, having been a former CO, the moments of empathy are actually more frequent than the research suggests, right? It's not something that's unique to just because COVID's happening. It's more than that, right? So I've been on a shift where a woman's water burst and she came back and she was now a mother, right? I've also had the misfortune of being on a shift where an offender comes back from a visitation and they've lost a family member, right? There are moments of empathy that happen constantly that melt away what is known as us versus them. I've seen male inmates recidivate, and I've felt the shame that they feel with seeing me again, right? Because they are back again, and it was only a couple of weeks. How did you end up here again, right? And I've celebrated with people as they've been released, right? And said, don't come back. I don't want to see you again. So I think it's important for us to keep in mind that while COVID is happening to all of us, life, humanity always happens to all of us. And it's happening inside of prison and jails too, right? And so it's really, really important. And unfortunately, the research isn't abreast. We don't tell that story, and we should. We should be telling that story, and hopefully with this work and our approach to this work with PRIN and PAR, we'll do better at telling more comprehensive stories, but it happens all the time.
Thank you for that, Talisa. And I think that we can also, as a group or as a team, think about how we can think about collecting data to capture that more comprehensively as part of this project. So thank you for lifting that up, Lisa. Okay, did we have other questions? Let me see.
There are two questions, but we have about 2 minutes remaining before we gotta end.
Okay, so
do you want to read them, or do you want?
Sure, I can read them. So one was, I joined late. So my question is, what is the purpose and goal for the research? I can give a really quick answer to that. And then the other question is, what have you learned about conducting research in a prison setting through this project and trying to take a participatory research approach? So I'll let the sites answer that one, but really quickly, just to recap on the goals of this project, it's to really use the research that we collect and the evidence to shine a light on prison conditions and to pilot some innovative and transformative strategies for improving the environments that people are experiencing when they live and work in those facilities, and using what we learned through the research to bring it up to statewide reforms, because the benefit of this project is that we have so many stakeholders and so many key players that are showing a commitment to corrections reform and using newer ways to do that. And so I can share more information through our link and through our website in the chat, which I'll do while I let the sites talk a little bit about what they've been learning through the participatory approach in specifically in a prison setting. What are some of the challenges, what's been working, what advice would you give on how to use PAR in this prison setting? What is key?
Yeah, And we have about 60 seconds before I have to, unfortunately, end the panel.
Okay, well then, this is Darryl, chairman from the University of Delaware. Far as doing participatory action research inside of a prison setting, I chiefly work with the incarcerated or the housed population. And one bit of advice I would give you that if you have someone who those guys already trust and have built a rapport with them, that right there is the best person to go in there with. And keep in mind, you have to ensure the guys of several things. First is that this right here is definitely a flip on a power dynamics, where now the power is actually in your hands, because in a real part project, we'll be teaching these guys the theoretical framework, how to design surveys, conduct the surveys, bring the surveys back, the result, and then present them to their colleagues. So we really go in there with that. This right here is a way to add power to your voice. And not only that right there, this right here is a process that you, as a person who's incarcerated, need to know. This is how the university, this is how academician think about you. This is how urban thinks. And this is right how the DOC think. And this right here is a chance for you to tell people how you think. And as the old thing goes, that if you don't tell your story, then somebody else will. So we really tell them, guys, this right here is a chance for you to say what you got to say. And it's really about empowerment. It's about the liberation of people. And we need to go out there and understand this process right here, and that it's $1 billion industry, Black and brown research, and that we got to make them realize that your past could be an asset and you no longer have to look at it as a liability.
Okay, so thank you to Cassandra and thank you to all the panelists. I'm sorry I have to end this here. This sounds like a great set of projects. I just wanted to say one thing, housekeeping quickly. The video from this will be posted to our YouTube page in the coming weeks, but I have to end the panel now because the next host has to sign in using the exact same sign-in address. And but if you intend to stay on this stream, you'll have to just click on the link again to rejoin. I hope everybody stays healthy and safe and has enjoyed CrimCon 2020. Thank you.